On March 2nd, 1984, filmmaker Alex Cox premiered his film Repo Man, the story of an LA auto repossessor played by Harry Dean Stanton, who schools a white suburban punk played by Emilio Estevez on the intense life of a repo man while pursuing a mysterious Chevy Malibu that's also wanted by government agents. At the time of its release, Universal Pictures, going through a regime change, planned on pulling Repo Man from theaters until Cox and his producers took out an ad in Variety, reprinting a positive review. Fortunately, the era of cable television and VHS allowed Repo Man to have a second life. Along with the success of the film soundtrack with the theme song written and performed by Iggy Pop with members of Blondie and the Sex Pistols, Repo Man eventually became a cult classic, inspiring a generation of filmmakers like Bronson and Drive director Nicholas Winding Refn,
Alex Cox, come back. We all miss you.
and Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz director Edgar Wright.
I do like Alex Cox, and he was a big deal when I was a teenager because he used to present this show on BBC Two called Movie Drone, where he used to introduce cult movies.
In 2014, Paul Thomas Anderson, director of Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood, screened a clip of Repo Man for an audience at the New York Film Festival and said this of the director: "As far as I'm concerned, he's underappreciated. I was 13 or 14 years old and recognized the world. There's such an abandon in this movie. It's focused, it's funny, it's outlandish, it's talking in a way that never feels like a stage play because it's always moving. Can't talk enough about Alex Cox. As far as I'm concerned, he's a hero." After Repo Man, Cox went on to direct Sid and Nancy, giving Gary Oldman his first leading role as punker Sid Vicious. Followed that up in 1986 with the gore-splattered punk spaghetti western Straight to Hell, starring the Clash's Joe Strummer, Cy Richardson, Dick Rude, Dennis Hopper, and Courtney Love. Then in 1987, he made probably his most controversial film ever, Walker, starring Ed Harris as missionary and politician William Walker. The film was not well received, turning off both conservative and Hollywood liberals for its radical deconstruction of the Western, using anachronisms and parallels between the 1980s Contra War in Nicaragua. The film got the director blacklisted from making studio films. But the auteur continues to make movies, and you can find some of them like Highway Patrolman, Three Businessmen, Straight to Hell, and the 2010 redo Straight to Hell Returns on Fander. You can also find a new Blu-ray transfer of Repo Man from the Criterion Collection. In addition to his directing, Cox is also an author, columnist, critic, and actor. He appeared alongside the late James Gandolfini in the psychotic thriller Perdita Durango. His current project, an Indiegogo crowdfunded film titled Tombstone Rashomon, is another radical retelling of the West. The film is the story of the famous gunfight at the OK Corral, this time told from multiple perspectives. I got a chance to sit down with the director, courtesy of the Loft Cinema in Tucson, to discuss all of his films in the following interview. This film came out in 1984, but the themes are still very relevant. It's truthful in many ways. Do you think perhaps that's why Repo Man has had its longevity?
I would like to think, yes, I would like to think the profound elements of it are what has given it its life, but I also think perhaps the music helped.
Oh,
You
yes.
know,
Yes, the music has a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Black Flag, Suicidal
Yeah.
Tendencies, The Plugs. Are you influenced by music when you're writing a film? Do you write to music, or do you wait to do the scores later?
I think, well, in this case, it was very influenced by music because I was going to see all those shows in Los Angeles in the early 80s and the late 70s, and so I was very into that scene, the hardcore music scene in LA, and also the wider punk scene as well, and so that definitely had an impact on the script. And I'm sure I was listening to a lot of music when I wrote the various versions of it. Normally, I'm not so musically involved. I think those first two films, because that film and the Sid and Nancy movie, because they were about the rock and roll scene, were a lot more influenced by music, and music tended to permeate them. Yeah.
Yes. Have you ever been interested in music, or are you a musician yourself?
No, I have no musical talent at all, so I defer entirely to the composer, in the same way as I don't have any talent as a cinematographer, so I always defer to the camera person, or a sound recordist. I don't know how to record sound, so I defer to the sound person.
But it's funny you say that, though, because your movies are very punk rock, all of them. Repo Man, Sid and Nancy, Straight to Hell, with Joe Strummer, even Walker, like as like very very punk rock.
That's right, but it's in a punk band. You got everybody doing their job. You've got the vocalist, you've got the number one guitar, you've got the bass guitar, you've got the drummer, you've got an engineer, you've got a producer. So everybody's got their role to perform.
Right.
And and that's interesting because even though punk is supposedly so indisciplined and anarchic and crazy, but anarchy isn't indiscipline. Anarchy can be very disciplined and very together.
Your DP on Repo Man was Robbie Mueller, who did a lot of Jim Jarmusch films. Two of my favorite shots in Repo Man are the shot where Otto's singing the Black Flag song. The top part of the frame is the LA sky, and the bottom part of the frame is Otto sitting. And I love how he's lit. And my other second favorite shot of this film is when Harry Dean and Cy Richardson are sitting in the car, and they're talking about what they're going to do with the 20,000, and you have that beautiful split diopter shot.
Isn't that a nice shot? Yeah.
That's a beautiful shot.
Yeah, that's really good, and that was Robbie's idea, to keep it in focus. He'd used it previously, I think, on a Wim Wenders film.
Yes.
And he goes, I know how we can keep these two guys in focus, Really?
Yes.
How?
Yes.
Let me show you.
That's like a one of those visual touches also, like when, they're talking, but Harry Dean Stanton's talking about like what he's going to do with the 20,000. So, and they're lit kind of different too. Like, Harry Dean's kind of lit kind of bluish.
And if Bob Richardson had shot that scene, he would have pulled focus from Harry to Cy to Harry to Cy, because that's one of his trademark moves, or it used to be. Mm-hmm. But because Robbie was the cinematographer, Robbie thought that would be a distraction. Mm-hmm. So for him, he wanted to keep them both in focus and yet do what you're saying, still differentiate them through light. Yeah,
I like split diopter. Like they need to do that more in movies.
I agree.
One of the only directors I see that has used it a lot is Brian De Palma.
Oh yes, that's right.
Quite a bit. Like in almost all of his movies, I see split.
So I guess maybe Hitchcock used it as well, and maybe because he's so much in the Hitchcock vein.
Right.
Maybe there's a shot like that in Hitchcock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure
De Palma, he was inspired also by Dario Argento.
Yes.
Yes.
Who's now making another crowdfunded film with Iggy Pop.
With Iggy Pop.
Yeah, he's doing a film called Sandman, which he crowdfunded on Indiegogo. They raised about $250,000 or $200,000, and he's going to be shooting in the new year this horror film called Sandman with Iggy.
You're here at the Loft tonight. We're watching Repo Man, but you're also here promoting your new film, which has yet to be made and is a version of the events at the OK Corral in Tombstone or outside the OK Corral in Tombstone in 1881, from multiple perspectives. So instead of getting the point of view of one group, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, which is the case of My Darling Clementine or Tombstone or Doc, the Frank Perry movie. They're all good films, but they all take a side, and this film takes all the sides separately and weaves them together. How, I don't yet know. But you're going to shoot it like in a Akira Kurosawa kind of way, like Rashomon. It'll be different perspectives, different points of view, different events of what went down at the OK Corral.
Yes.
That sounds very interesting.
It is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's
it
never
really
been
is.
done before, so it'll be interesting because all of the versions of the OK Corral we've seen, they've been more of like a glorified, more of like a mythic, like heroic kind of thing. And, the truth is usually
more complicated than that.
Exactly. Yes. In the film, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, a character says, "In the West, sir, when the legend becomes fact, print the legend." Do you think that the statement rings true of stories in the West? Should we be more careful about the heroes we choose?
I think, I think that I would say yes in answer to those questions, because there's a very good film that was made the same year as Liberty Valance called Lonely Are the Brave, with Kirk Douglas. And it's based on a book by Ed Abbey called The Brave Cowboy. And it really calls into question the notion of heroism and the notion that you can perform heroic actions at all, and that maybe you might be better off just leaving it alone. And so the fact that both those films were made in 1963 or released in 1963, and they both take this view, this troubled view of the West and of the Western and of what we believe in, and they kind of reach different conclusions. That the Ford movie reaches the conclusion that of print the legend. We need these legends. You know, we need heroes. And Lonely Are the Brave says, maybe we don't.
You're acting. You've done your share. You've
I've acted in some films, but not enough.
Not enough. No.
Not enough, casting directors.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but you've acted for Alex de Iglesia.
Yes, twice.
Yes, who made Perdita Durango, which was shot
Yes.
in Tucson.
Which is shot in Tucson.
Yes, and also the Oxford Murders.
And the Oxford Murders, yeah.
Yes. So you would like to do more acting? You look very
Yeah.
charactery too. Like you're like a very good like character
That's
actor.
the thing, because finally, you know, I've kind of grown into my face, you know, and so at last I can be a character actor. I can take over from Harry Dean Stanton.
Oh,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah.
Not that Harry's given up the business yet. He's still acting, isn't he? I mean, he's 91 years old or something. He's still acting.
Yes. So you could play the Repo Man in
When
the sequel.
we do the sequel, in 3.5 years' time, when the rights to Repo Man, the script, revert to me. That's right.
What would Repo Man 2 be about?
It would be set in Tucson.
Awesome.
And I think it would be about how you can now, thanks to the computer systems, you can take control of people's cars. So the Repo Man now can drive behind the malefactor, hack the computer on their car, shut the motor off, you know, slam on the brakes, open the doors, you know, and do a variety of other things completely illegally, you know, just like in the old days they would creep along with a Slim Jim and get in at dead of night. Now they can just, I don't know if Repo Men are doing this, but they have the capacity, if the car is connected to the World Wide Web, you know, for a recovery service or to send information to Volkswagen about how the gas mileage is going, the Repo Man can hack into that and control the car. So I think that's what we'll get into with the next one.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. So it'll be like a satire, like the original then.
Like the same
the
kind of
times.
idea.
Yeah.
But you know, but times have changed and the technology has changed and how General Motors get their cars back has changed.
Yes,
you
that's
know?
kind of creepy, right? Like where they could just like shut your car off. Yes, I had a coworker that she didn't pay her bill and they just like shut her car off. You know what I'm saying? Like
That's the Repo. That's what I'm talking about, isn't it? They shut her car down because she owed money to the bank.
Yes.
And they shut her car down, and so that's then, you know, they can come and tow it away, put it on the low loader and take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like the original Repo Man was kind of about that too. It was kind of like a western. It was pretty much like a western because you had like all these, you know, repo guys like competing against each other to get the prize.
But times change, and now it's more like science fiction, isn't it?
Right.
Because it's now a guy. It could be a guy following in a car, or it could be a guy sitting in his office at his computer doing all this.
Yes.
And so maybe the protagonists of Repo Man 2, maybe they just sit behind computer terminals all day going like that and messing with people's lives, you know?
Oh, yes. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. So we need a Repo Man 2. We need a sequel.
3.5 years, the rights to the screenplay and the sequel come back to me. So then we can do it.
Two films that you almost directed were Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas,
Yes?
and the second, Mars Attacks.
Yes. Hey, and what about Three Amigos?
Oh, yes, and almost
Yes.
Three Amigos, yes. John Landis. Yes.
For the Tucson connection.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And because Alfonso Arau is going to be here, right?
Oh, yeah, he'll be at the Loft.
Yeah, Alfonso Arau will be here in October. So
Yes, I loved him in,
Hi to Alfonso.
Of course, yeah. He was in the Wild Bunch.
And he's in the Wild Bunch. He's in
He was in
Walker.
Walker,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's
He's in
really
Walker
good.
also.
He's in the Wild Bunch. That's his triumph. You know, he's fantastic in the
Oh,
Wild
yeah,
Bunch.
he's great. I love that movie.
Yeah,
I'd like the
yeah.
Blu-ray of that
I am
movie.
your friend.
Yeah.
We are your friends.
Yeah. That's like the best line ever. I guess my question was like, what would your version of Mars Attacks be? Would it be like the Tim Burton version, or would it be more like a rated R like Repo Man kind of movie?
It was different, but it was more about the human rebellion against the Martians after they'd taken over the country, after they'd taken over the world. So it wasn't quite the apocalyptic attack of the Martians in the bubblegum cards or of Tim Burton's film. It was more of a sort of, the Martians have come and colonized Earth and are using it as a place to sell garbage products that they can no longer sell on Mars. In other words, finding new markets. And it was pretty funny, and it ended with the like the bubblegum cards, with the retaliatory attack on Mars by Earth. But I think the best way to do it now, thinking about it, would be to do it exactly like the bubblegum cards. Have it be like 52 episodes exactly like the cards. Yeah. That would be a fantastic film.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
And that could still be made.
Exactly.
You know.
Crowdfunding.
Yeah, crowdfund that.
what do you consider an auteurist, and who are your favorite auteurs?
Well, an auteurist is somebody who believes in the auteur theory, right? So you and I are auteurists because we both believe in the auteur theory. Yeah, definitely. I mean, my favorite film auteurs. I like a lot of film directors. I like Kurosawa, Buñuel,
Yeah, Louis Buñuel.
Peckinpah, Corbucci, Sergio Leone, and then some people who only made like one great film but made it fantastically. But I definitely believe in the auteur theory, and I definitely have so many directors that I love. But now I can think of those guys. But if you ask me tomorrow, or if I asked you that question tomorrow, you'd say somebody different. Who's your favorite? Who are your favorite auteur directors?
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese. David Lynch. Alex Cox. There's several. Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
It's just when the director puts their personal stamp on a movie.
Yes.
Like when it's very, very personal.
Yes.
Like to me, that's like what an auteurist is. When they have like a very unique vision, like of the world.
But that's an auteur, because the auteurist is a person who believes in the auteur theory.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So, but the auteur is what you say. Yeah, that's right. The
Yes.
auteur is a director who comes up with his or her idea for the film, maybe writes the script themselves, or hires the writer, or asks the writer to write it, goes to the producer, says, "Can we raise money on this?" As opposed to like a studio or television-based director who you just, there's the script, go for it, mate.